So, good morning. This is the third lecture of solid state electronics, in which I will talk about two different current transport mechanism in semiconductor, and then the p-n junction. There are two ways by which the current can flow into a semiconductor. The first one is a drift, and the second is diffusion. Okay, I hope you are familiar with these two mechanisms. The one sentence definition of drift is the motion of charge carriers in presence of electric field is called drift motion. And suppose you have a metal, if you are given a piece of metal, you all know that there are free electrons moving here and there inside the solid or metal. And if you find out the total initial average velocity of all the electrons moving here and there into a metal, then it will come out to be equal to zero because they are randomly moving here and there. So average velocity will be equal to zero. So if you try to make use of the equation B is equal to U plus AT, so B is basically the velocity, U is the initial velocity. So initial average velocity will be equal to zero. Now suppose we apply an electric field. When we apply an electric field, all the electrons of the metal will try to move opposite to the direction of the electric field, and there will be a force acting on each and every electron that will be equal to E into E, where E is the electronic charge and capital E is the electric field. And if m is the mass of the electron, then acceleration of the electron will be E upon m, and we can write down BD to be equal to E average, that is equal to 0, plus E upon m into T. Now what should be the value of T? If you look at the picture inside the metal, the electrons are not free. They keep on colliding. You must have read about mean free path and the relaxation time. The distance between the two collisions is called relaxation time. The free path traversed by the particle between the two collisions is called mean free path. So if you find out the average of all the time between which we can write down the equation B is equal to U plus AT. So we make use of tau and we write down BD to be equal to E upon M into tau. So a BD is proportional to the electric field. If we remove if we introduce a constant of proportionality, then BD becomes equal to mu into E, and mu is called mobility of charge carriers, mobility of the electrons in case of metals, and the mobility of electrons and holes in case of a semiconductor. We now have a metal, a piece of metal is given to us. We apply an electric field. If you look at the figure, we apply an electric field. So what will happen? The electrons will move opposite to the direction of electric field. We are taking a small piece of that wire through which the current is flowing, and the length of that small piece is L. The area of cross section is A, and suppose N is the electron concentration, number of electrons per unit volume. So you can see in this rectangular piece of a wire, the number of electrons will be N into A into L, because A into L is the volume of this small piece of a conductor, and E is the electronic charge. So the total charge contained by this piece of the metal will be N into A into L into E, and divided by T. Suppose T is the time taken by the carrier to travel a distance L, then by using simple definition of the current I to be equal to Q upon T, we can write down the expression for the current. So I is equal to N into A into L into E, and T, time taken by the electron to travel this distance. If the drift velocity is BD, so L upon BD is the time T, and we can put it in this form. So here L and L cancels out. So we can write now I upon A. I upon A is nothing but the current density J, that is equal to, you can see NEBD. You must have derived BD is equal to I upon NAE in class 12 level. So BD is now equal to mu into E. So I make a substitution, NE into me into E. So this I upon A is now J. We know the Ohm's law. J is equal to sigma E. So J is here, E is here, and we can write down the conductivity sigma of the metal as N into E into mu. N is the electron concentration, E is the electron charge, and mu is the mobility of electrons. Suppose now we have a semiconductor. Suppose this piece is of a semiconductor. What will happen when we apply the electric field in this direction? The electrons in the semiconductor will move opposite to the direction of electric field, while the holes in the semiconductor will move in the direction of the electric field. So the current due to the movement of electron is opposite to its movement. So therefore, current due to the electron will be in the direction of electric field. And similarly, the holes being positively charged particle will also contribute a current in the same direction. So J, the total current, total drift current in a semiconductor will be given by the sum of the electron current and the hole current together. So it is N into E into mu N plus P into E into mu H into E, and the value of sigma, the conductivity of a semiconducting material, will be N into E into mu N plus P into E into mu H. Mu N is the mobility of electron and mu H is the mobility of hole. N and P are electron and hole concentration. So in this case, similarly, suppose we want to define the value of the resistivity also. Resistivity is the inverse of the conductivity, and we can write down resistivity rho as 1 upon sigma and write down the expression for the resistivity of a semiconductor in terms of electron concentration, hole concentration, the electron mobility, and the hole mobility. So for drift, the electric field is essential. Without electric field, drift motion is not possible. The other mechanism of a current flow into the semiconductor is called diffusion. Diffusion, in fact, if you go into the fabrication of a semiconducting crystal, the electron and hole concentration or doping inside the crystal is never uniform. It's always non-uniform, and this non-uniformity gives rise to the phenomena of diffusion. Whenever there is a concentration gradient, due to the concentration gradient, the movement of particle gives rise to basically a current called diffusion current, and diffusion is basically the phenomena of movement of particle due to the concentration gradient. If you look at the figure here, what I have shown here in this figure, this is the distance, or this is along the length of a semiconducting crystal, and on the y-axis I am plotting the electron density, and suppose the electron concentration increases linearly along the positive x direction. So what will happen? The electrons will diffuse from higher concentration to the lower concentration. So the direction of electron flux will be in this direction, from higher concentration to the lower concentration, and the electron diffusion current will be in this direction. So electron diffusion current density is proportional to the charge gradient. It's a very important law. It's called the Fick's law of diffusion. So according to the Fick's law of diffusion, the electron diffusion current density is proportional to the charge gradient, and the charge gradient is E into dN over dx, because N is the electron concentration. So charge will be equal to D, charge will be Ne, and that is why it's E into dN upon dx. If we remove this proportionality here, we have to introduce a constant, and this dN is electron diffusion coefficient. If you work out, its a unit is centimeter square per second. So Jn is now equal to E into dN into dN into dN over dx for this particular condition when the flux is increasing along the positive x direction. Suppose we take now a positively charged or a hole concentration is also increasing in the same direction. So what will happen? The hole flux will also in the same direction, because the holes will also diffuse from a positive or more concentration to the smaller concentration, giving rise to the hole diffusion current in the same direction, because holes are positively charged. So current due to the hole will be in the direction of the movement of the hole. So if we write down, so Jp is now minus E into dP over dx. If we write down total current, we can write down total current due to the electron separately. We can write down the total current due to the hole separately. But here I have written basically the total current into a semiconductor, and that current is given by the sum of the drift current due to the electron, drift current due to the hole, the diffusion current due to the electron, and diffusion current due to the holes. You can write down both the currents separately and then put them together as J is equal to J due to the electron and J due to the holes. So these are the two mechanisms, that is a drift and diffusion, which are very important. Then there are two laws which are also very important to understand basically the semiconducting material. One is, we have already derived the expression for electron and hole concentration in the last lecture, and there we proved that N into P is Ni square. Ni is intrinsic carrier concentration. So this law is called the law of mass action, that at a constant temperature, the product of the electron and hole concentration is equal to the square of intrinsic carrier concentration. The other law is called the law of electrical neutrality. In the semiconducting material, suppose you have a semiconductor. Inside the semiconductor, you have the donor, you have the acceptor, you have the electrons and the holes. So if you find out the total positive charge in the semiconductor and the total negative charge semiconductor, because the moment you begin with, it's a neutral. And even after doping also, the material is neutral. So that is why we call it as a law of electrical neutrality. So if you look at a semiconducting material, if N is the electron concentration, if P is the hole concentration, Na is the acceptor density, and Nd is the donor density. So we can find out the total positive charge per unit volume into the semiconducting material. That will be the charge of the hole and the charge of donor impurities, P plus Nd into E. Similarly, coming to the negative charge side, we have negatively charged electrons and the negatively charged acceptor impurities. So if you put them together, then we can write down P, Nd plus P is equal to Na plus N. This is called law of electrical neutrality. Basically, this is the general law. In fact, if we have a P-type semiconductor, we can assume that P is much larger than N. Similarly, if we have an N-type semiconductor, we can assume that N is much larger than P. So we can ignore or we can neglect N or P depending on what type of semiconductor we are talking about. Then these are the two laws, law of mass action and the law of electrical neutrality. If we are given the donor concentration and acceptor concentration, we can find out the electron and hole concentration into a semiconductor. And once we know the electron and hole concentration in a semiconductor, now we can find out the information about the conductivity and also the position of Fermi level as discussed in the last lecture. And in today's lecture about so you can see here, Na plus P is equal to Na plus N. So total positive charge must be equal to the total negative charge. That is how the conductivity is, in fact, the neutrality is maintained. Next thing that we have to discuss about is called PN junction. PN junction, this also you must have studied. PN junction diode, normally if you read your textbook, you will find out that PN junction diode is formed by putting a P-type semiconductor and N-type semiconductor together, or it is obtained by just gluing them together. But that is not the case. It is a device created by bringing together a P-type and N-type region within the same semiconductor lattice. We have to have one semiconductor, and then only we have to convert it into a PN junction. But we can understand it as if it is basically a junction between a P-type semiconductor and N-type semiconductor. The junction between the two semiconducting material is called metallurgical junction. So if you look at the electron and hole concentration in P-type and N-type, so in P-type, there are more acceptor impurities. On N type, there are more donor impurities. So more donor impurities means more number of electrons. More acceptor impurities means more number of holes. So what will happen if you put them together? Don't apply any electric field. So the dominant current flowing mechanism will be the diffusion. Why diffusion? Because if you just assume that you are at the boundary, so on this side of a boundary, there are more number of holes. So holes will diffuse from P type to N type. Similarly, on N side, there are more number of electrons, and on P side, there are less number of electrons. So electrons will diffuse from N type to P type, and holes will diffuse from P type to N type. So now we have to understand that how long are they going to, or how they are going to diffuse. Is it an indefinite process? The answer is no. So if you look at the figure here, what I have shown in this figure here is that this solid dot is an electron, the open circle is a hole, this plus enclosing a circle is a positively charged donor atom, and a negative enclosed is negatively charged acceptor atom. So what happens is either a electron diffuses from N side to P side, or a hole diffuses from P side to N side. Basically, this gives rise to the recombination of electron, or electron hole pair is last. That is what is called recombination. So either a hole moves from P side to N side, or an electron moves from N side to P side. It gives rise to a region where there is neither an electron nor a hole. You can see on this side of a boundary, you have positively charged donor impurities, no electron. Outside this boundary, you can see both of them, but here you don't see any electron. Similarly, on this side of a boundary, you see negatively charged acceptor impurities, but there is no hole. So in this region, there is no mobile carrier. This region is called space charge region, or it is also called depletion region. Depletion का हिंदी में मतलब होता है भगा देना. The mobile carriers has been depleted. That is why we call it as the depletion region. If you look at the two type of charges building up because of the diffusion on the two side of the boundary or two side of the junction, this gives rise to an electric field. Electric field will be up away from the positive charge or towards the negative charge. So the direction of the electric field will be from positive charge to the negative charge, or from N side to P side. If you look at this electric field, you can consider it as a parallel plate capacitor case. The value of E depends upon the charge migration or diffusion of charge from one side to another. So more the diffusion, more strong is this electric field. So this electric field now will start exerting force on the diffusion electron from N to P and the holes from P to N. And let us see whether the induced field which has been created by the diffusion and then building up of or piling up of the positively charged donor impurities and the negatively accepted impurities on this side helps the electrons and holes or opposes. You can see here when a positive charge would like to move from P side to N side, this electric field will exert a force in this direction. That means it will oppose the motion. And similarly, the electric field force on the electron will also be opposite. It is from P to N because the electron has a tendency to diffuse from N to P. So it's not a long lasting process. Very soon, when the electric field becomes such as that it opposes the motion of electrons from N to P and the motion of holes from P to N, the diffusion will stop. And this gives rise to basically a barrier voltage that I have shown here. This is basically a barrier voltage because this end is a positively charged end of a battery and this becomes a negatively charged end of a battery. And this potential barrier here is of the order of 0.3 volt for germanium and 0.7 volt for silicon diode. This barrier voltage here is also called turn on voltage. In some cases, you will see that people call it as the knee voltage also. So barrier voltage, turn on voltage, knee voltage, basically these are all synonyms. So they all mean the same thing. That means there is a barrier. If the electron wants to move from N side to P side, they have to surmount this barrier, and the same thing holds for the holes coming from P to N also. Now let us try to understand the same thing on the basis of energy level diagram. You now know the energy level diagram of a p-type semiconductor and n-type semiconductor. Here ECP, P for p-type. So this is the energy level diagram for p-type semiconductor, and this is the energy level diagram of n-type semiconductor. So here, if you put both the semiconducting material together, what will happen? In case of n-type semiconductor, the Fermi level has a larger energy than that of a p-type semiconductor. So since the energy of electrons on the n side is larger, so they will move from n side to p side till the lining up of Fermi level takes place. So in thermal equilibrium means there is no current into the semiconductor. The diffusion has also stopped. So in terms of energy level diagram, we can say that here you can see that Fermi level of the two are aligned, they are lined up, but there is basically there's a change in the band here. It is because of the electric field. This electric field is basically from this side to this side. That is why within the barrier, you can see that the bands are not uniform. And if you look at this, so this is now E into BB. If you look at the electrons here in thermal equilibrium, you can see here that because of the barrier, it is not possible for the electrons to move from N to P, and similarly, holes from P to N. Let us see the same thing from this energy band diagram also. You can see on N side, the electrons are somewhere here at the conduction band. If they want to cross over or if they want to switch over to P side, they need a energy to be equal to E into BB. This is the energy that is required to them basically to surmount the barrier. So that means it's not possible unless and until we supplement something to this barrier, the flow of electron and the hole in the semiconductor is not possible. So now we can find out the value of this EBB also. If you look at this diagram, EBB is nothing but this band gap EG minus this ECN minus EFN and then EFP minus EBP. And you know the relations. So if you put these values, EG is a KT into Ln NB NC over Ni square minus, you know the formula for N for a p-type semiconductor, formula for N for n-type semiconductor, and formula for P, the whole concentration for p-type semiconductor. If you put all these formula together, on the next page, you have the formula also. You can see I have made use of these three formula to put them together and then combined all the three logarithmic term. The value of BB is equal to KT upon E into log of Na ND upon Ni square. So theoretically, we can say that the barrier concentration depends upon the acceptor impurity concentration, the donor impurity concentration, the intrinsic carrier concentration, and also the temperature. Temperature is also basically an important parameter to decide the turn on voltage of a PN junction. This is the symbol, the arrow here basically shows the direction of the current. Then if we really want to help the electrons and holes to move from one side to another side and allow the current to pass through a PN junction, you must have read about biasing. Biasing is basically supplementing the energy by connecting a battery to a PN junction diode. So if you take a battery, external battery, connect the positive terminal of the battery to P and the negative terminal of a battery to N. So you can see that this battery is opposite to the barrier voltage. So initial voltage will be utilized to basically take care of the barrier voltage. If you increase the forward bias voltage, the depletion layer will come down and the value of the current will increase as you increase the forward bias voltage. That is why this in forward biasing, the resistance offered by a PN junction for the current to pass through is low. Now coming to the reverse bias side, you have to connect the positive terminal of the external battery to N type and negative terminal to P side. So that means it becomes more difficult now for the carrier to pass through, or it is not possible for the current to pass through due to the majority carrier, but still, in fact, if you draw the diagram, there is some current. So that current is called leakage current. Leakage current is nothing but the movement of minority carriers from P side to N side and N side to P side, that gives rise to basically the very small current in the reverse bias side. And that is the reason why a diode, when reverse biased, offers a very high resistance. So I'm not going into the details of forward biasing and reverse biasing. If you talk in terms of the energy band diagram, the barrier voltage is lowered when you increase the forward bias voltage, and the barrier voltage basically becomes more and more, or it increases if you apply more and more reverse bias voltage. Suppose we have an ideal diode. It is just like ideal gases, ideal and real. So in case of an ideal diode, when it is forward biased, there will be full current. You can see here the current voltage diagram. And in reverse biasing, there will not be any current. So that is why in future also, while dealing with several electronic devices, we will make use of PN junction diode in forward biasing as on and reverse biasing as off. On means zero resistance, off means infinite resistance. But that is the situation for basically an ideal diode. Cutoff voltage is zero, but in real diode, it is not the case. The real diode equation is given by I is equal to I0 e to the power of QB upon eta KT, then minus 1. B is the applied voltage. Eta is called ideality factor. So if you look at a practical diode or a real diode, on the forward side, in fact, we have basically the exponential increase in the current, while on the reverse bias side, there is a very small current of the order of few microamperes only, while on the forward side in the lab, you will find out the current of the order of milliampere. Let us now work on this, this equation more. This voltage here is called knee voltage. Knee voltage is nothing but the voltage at which the current, forward current through the diode, starts increasing basically at a fast rate. Now coming to the forward bias side, suppose we take a voltage of 1 volt, we assume a temperature of 27 degrees centigrade, that corresponds to 300 degree Kelvin, and let us calculate the value of the exponential term here. So as I told you earlier that KT by E is 1 by 40 electron volt. So this number comes out to be 40. E to the power of 40, you can calculate this number using your calculator in your mobile. The value of e to the power of 40 will come out to be a very large number. So you can always ignore 1 in comparison to exponential term. And in forward biasing, we write down I is equal to I0 e to the power of QB upon eta into KT. Eta I will explain just after this. Now coming to the reverse bias side, in place of 1 volt, now we have to put minus 1 volt. So if you put minus 1 volt, this becomes now minus 40. So now the reverse is true, 1 becomes larger and e to the power of minus 40 becomes negligible. So then in that case, we write down I to be equal to minus IS. That is the reason why we call it as reverse saturation current. It depends upon several parameters. It's a very important parameter. So, but we will discuss about this in more detail later. So I is equal to IS. Another thing about eta. Eta here is called ideality factor. And in your textbook, you will find the value of eta varies from 1 to 2. For silicon and germanium both. So it is always advisable to find out the value of eta while performing any experiment in the laboratory before exploiting this equation of diode to find out the reasonable physical parameter. The other is the diffusion of minority carriers. Diffusion of minority carriers, I explained you that why do we get a very small saturation current or a reverse saturation current. It is because of the diffusion of minority carriers. Thermal energy causes electron hole pair to be generated in the semiconductor. The current produced due to the diffusion of minority carriers across the junction is called minority carriers, and during the reverse biasing, it is the diffusion of minority carriers that gives rise to basically the diode current. This current is also called the leakage current, and it's a very strong function of temperature. You will see that even in the lab also you will find that the value of saturation current does not change much while changing the reverse bias voltage, but it is a very strong function of temperature. The value of reverse saturation current doubles in magnitude for every 10-degree rise in temperature. You have to remember this fact. It's very important that for every 10-degree rise in temperature, the minority carrier concentration is doubled. The current also gets doubled. So this is also very important thing to understand the characteristics of a PN junction diode. The other is now forward AC and DC resistance of a junction. You all know that if we want to define the resistance, we make use of Ohm's law, B is equal to IR. Then you must also have read about ohmic and unohmic circuit. Ohmic circuit, ohmic circuit are the one which follows basically the Ohm's law. Diode is not a ohmic device, it's a unohmic device, because here if you plot a graph between the voltage and the current of a diode, you have seen that it's not a straight line. So DC resistance or static resistance is the resistance offered by the diode when only a steady DC current flows through it. Suppose we fix the current through a diode. So we will fix the current through the diode by applying a fixed voltage across the diode. Then the static forward DC resistance of a diode will be given by the ratio of forward bias voltage to the corresponding forward current. It is BF upon AF. It is a relatively low value. It has a relatively low value because when it is forward biased, the resistance is low, and when it is reverse biased, the value of the resistance is very high. This RDC, the DC resistance or static resistance, depends upon the point of operation of a diode, as the diode curve is not linear. That means for each and every voltage, the resistance of a diode will vary. That is what is meant by that it depends upon the point of operation of a diode. The other resistance is called dynamic resistance or AC resistance of a diode. It is the resistance of the diode or resistance offered by the diode to an AC signal. If you allow a AC voltage superimposed onto the DC on a diode, what will happen? The voltage will change. So then the ratio of change in voltage to the corresponding change in current is called basically RAC. Otherwise also you must have read instantaneous resistance. So this dynamic resistance is nothing but the instantaneous resistance. If you want to find out the instantaneous resistance at a particular voltage, it is a dy over dx. It is a dB over di. It is the slope of the voltage versus current curve at that particular point. So that is why RAC is delta B upon delta I. Mathematically, we can write it as dB over di also, and dB over di is now equal to 1 over di over dB. So 1 over di over dB, this now we can write down it in a simpler form by using the diode equation. I is equal to I0 e to the power of QB upon eta kT. So if you differentiate, di over dB is I into E upon eta kT. Now we go back to RAC. So we can write down RAC to be equal to eta kT upon E into I. And here RAC can also be written as eta into K upon E into T upon I. K upon E, the ratio of Boltzmann constant to the electronic charge, is a constant quantity. So it depends upon the value of the current and the temperature. For germanium, the value of eta is 1. For silicon, normally we take it 2, and for germanium, we take the ideality factor as 1. So if we take the value of eta as 1 and temperature as usual 327 degrees centigrade, then RAC comes out to be 27 upon I. You will have to solve some of the problems based on these two formula to find out the forward and the reverse, forward is AC and DC resistance of a diode, and it must be clear that one resistance is considering the ohmic circuit and other is the real one. Both resistance are voltage dependent. That means if you look at the current voltage characteristics of a diode, if you want to find out the resistance here, you have to draw a tangent at this point, and the slope of a tangent at this point will give you the resistance here. You can check yourself that the slope keeps on changing, and therefore the resistance is also variable. It is voltage dependent. So that is all about today's lecture. Thank you so much.